Hey everyone, it's Sarah Oblique Spiker here. There's something that I want to talk to you about, and the live streaming gods are just not on my side today, so I'm resorting to just recording this video and then sharing it as opposed to doing a live stream. Today, I want to talk to you about a topic that typically is not something that you would hear from me, not in such explicit terms as you are going to hear today, but it is a integral part of building intentional living, even and especially intentional leadership, because it has to do with relationships. I'm going to be touching upon relationships as in conscious parenting. I'm going to be talking about relationships as in partnership and marriages, and I'm going to be talking about relationships as in relationship we have with ourselves, because that is the foundation of everything that we do. And the reason why I wanted to speak out about this is multifold, actually. Well, first and foremost, we are in the midst of some of the most powerful shifts and transformations that our generation arguably has ever experienced. And if you're like myself, intuitive person, empathetic being, and yet this powerhouse alpha female, you are dancing in both worlds right now. A part of you is freaking out because there's so much that you have no control over and your mind is throwing a fit. On the other hand, you are feeling into limitlessness and spaciousness and expansiveness of all these possibilities that are unfolding, and you're tapping into your knowing and into your, the space that just fuels you with this peace of mind, and it gets to be perfect and you're fully surrendered. The second aspect and the second element of what we're experiencing right now also has to do with a lot of tension as a result of those shifts, a lot of divisiveness, a lot of violence, a lot of relationships ending abruptly, friendships ending, marriages ending, which, if we're quite honest, marriages in itself, looking at statistics, were doomed to fail in 50% of cases to begin with. So when I was contemplating on actually showing up and speaking about it, I was getting ready to hop on a live stream, and my little one, my 8-year-old, barged into the office to give me a hug and a kiss. And she said, "Mommy, you look like a vampire." And I'm like, what do you mean like I look like a vampire? And I love her bluntness. I love her playfulness. I love her just this ability to express herself fully. And it really reminded me how several years ago, when she was just a little kid and her little sister was just born, how very different my own life was, how very different my own marriage was, how very different relationship with myself was back then. And it wasn't even that long ago. And it really, just this experience of having her pop in for a second provided such a beautiful segue into the topic, like I said, I wanted to talk to you about today. And we're not going to be talking just about the concepts, but I also want to give you some practical tools and some of the insights that have really helped me deepen relationship with myself, deepen relationship with my husband, and really create a relationship with my 2 daughters that is nourishing, it's nurturing. And I just sincerely hope that they do feel the same way. And that's one of the tricky things. Only time will tell, right? Alrighty, so let's start at the beginning. I mentioned consciousness and I mentioned conscious parenting. The credit for this level of awareness goes to 2 of my mentors, Dr. Shefali and Marcy Locke. They came into my field so to speak, when, like I said, I had a newborn and a toddler. I had a business that was growing rapidly, but I kind of felt I outgrew it. It came, these two beings came into my field when I also started to battle postpartum depression and severe burnout. And when I was doing this interesting dance with my husband, who was always loving and always supporting, and yet there was this layer of resentment starting to build up within me. At the time, I still saw the world through the lens that was colored with conviction that me as a woman have to be fully independent, fiercely independent, actually, financially, emotionally, I can do it all kind of thinking. And that actually served me well as an athlete, to be honest. This go-getter, I'm gonna move the mountains if needed and nothing can stop me. Absolutely, yes. But something has shifted that now is literally threatening my life. And it really came down to a simple choice. Do I change the relationship with myself first, or everything goes down the drain, including me 6 feet under? So it was a clear choice, a simple one, but I did not expect the amount of actual heavy lifting that would require, because now we were not just talking about, building in time for self-care in terms of getting manicures and pedicures and massages and regular haircuts and stuff like that. That's not the inner work that I was talking about. The heavy lifting that I'm referring to is literally diving right into all the mess and all the discomforts and all the darkness and all the stories that we have so carefully compartmentalized and swept underneath the rug and stored away. All those old patterns and convictions and beliefs. Oh my goodness, there was so much to unpack. And I did not expect that ultimately this journey would be like a spiral, that at one point you deal with a belief, you unpack it, you reframe it, it's all good and it's sunny again, and then you continue going on, and at one point the storms come again and it's seemingly the same belief, right? And it's like, didn't I just work on that like a year and a half ago? And yes, that's exactly how it is, because every level has a new devil, as they say. So the good part is that along the way, as I was deepening understanding and releasing the stories and convictions and attachments and judgment around myself, how am I supposed to be like? How am I supposed to speak? How am I supposed to present myself? How am I supposed to feel? How am I supposed to act? How am I supposed to react? Us women, we really have mastered this game. We have been subjected to those rules of ticking off all the boxes of everybody else's expectations since birth. And as a matter of fact, for those of us who are, such a gift actually, when we are diving into and we're remembering who we truly are, you know what also comes up? Hundreds of years of gifts that we have carried so sacredly and secretively, because for hundreds of years, fellow women, our sisters, our mothers, our grandmothers, our cousins, they have been hung, they have been burnt at the stake for having those gifts that we are now reclaiming, exploring again, and playing with again. So of course, there's centuries of trauma that is being healed, and that doesn't happen with a blink of an eye. So to go back to the conversation about deepening a relationship with myself first, what I noticed was the beautiful shift in how my way of parenting has shifted, changed, evolved. And then also the connection that my husband and I got to experience and have created as a result. So here's the part when I mentioned earlier that On the surface, sometimes it might seem that we are the only ones doing the work, and yet when we look around, everybody has been elevated. And that is such a profound gift we can give to ourselves and we can give to others. And this is why I'm so devoted to doing this work, not just for myself, but with my clients, because this is one of the ways that we can really transcend the current reality and the gruesomeness and violence and divisiveness, and really start seeing things through love, and really start seeing things instead of reacting to it. We can really respond to every situation really impartially. So how, let me just share with you first and foremost, give you a little bit more tangible example of how deep this work actually is. So at one point I was working with a spiritual mentor and I was doing deep healing for myself, and we did the sequence of 5 sessions within 5 days, and I could feel after every single day that things have been changing within me. Just how I felt was different. Well, at the end of the 5th day, my daughter, she was, how old was she at the time? I would say around 5, 6, something like that. Well, she came home and I could see that she was a little antsy. And I was like, are you okay? She's like, yeah. But she had a little attitude there. I was like, okay, it's been a long day. She had a long week. Let me just see if she needed anything, if she needed space, or if she needed me to be there, if she needed a hug. Or one of the things that the girls and I started to do a while ago is, even though we spend all this time together, especially in quarantine, kind of a side note, we do have consistent date nights when they get undivided attention one-on-one. We mark our schedule, they pick their dates, and whether it's 10 minutes or a whole hour, we really play it by the ear, but the intention behind it is to really get undivided attention to that one child and to really give them the space to express themselves, to feel seen, to feel heard, to feel nurtured, to feel embraced, to just have this uninterrupted time with me or with my husband. It has done wonders. Okay, so that was one of the options that I offered to my daughter when she came home and she was really not at ease, really. So the day went on, and at the time it was time to go to bed, I gave her a bath, and as I had her wrapped in a towel and we were snuggling a little bit, she kind of pulled away. She turned her back towards me and I was like, are you okay? And she says, no, I just want my mommy back. I was like, well, baby, what do you mean? I'm right here. I will never forget. I will never forget this. She says, no, this is your body, but my mom is not quite there and I just want my mommy back. What I realized in this moment was the energy work, the healing, all the shifts that I have felt in myself, they suddenly became tangible. And what happened was actually the bond that my daughter and I had simply needed to be recalibrated. The next morning, she woke up. It was fine, right? We were right there again. But in that particular instant, she lost this connection. And little kids in particular are so tuned in into this higher knowing. There's such spiritual beings still, even though they don't have the language to express. So many of us have experienced throughout the childhood to really grow up quickly, right? Stop fantasizing. We were grounded real quick, faced with the hard reality that reality is tough, that the world out there is tough, that there's no space for dreamers, there's no space for gentleness, there's no space for imagination that we should get our acts together, right? And take on responsibilities and really stop fooling around and do the hard work and get ourselves together. So one of the things that I noticed when my two daughters start to really fully express themselves and their personalities start to develop, there was a wound that I carried with me that I did not even know, first and foremost, it was there because it was so well hidden. Secondly, I did not even know it still existed because I guarded it so well under the mask of toughness and this independence, right? But once my girls started to really come out of their own shells and they became those amazing girly girls, playful with limitless imagination, gentle, highly intuitive, blunt, right? I found myself in a space where I just wanted to react so frequently. So it was the consciousness that I worked on and the stamina that I developed and this endurance, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual endurance that allowed me to recognize every single time I was about to react. I could start recognizing the patterns. I started to recognize the triggers so I could reverse engineer and start dismantling them before things even occurred. And it's one of the greatest gifts that these two beings have given me. I can't even take the credit for being a good mom, so to speak, because it was them who held up the mirror and allowed me, created a space to do the work that I needed to do and I'm consistently doing. And I bet you that this is going to be a work that never ends. And that really brings me to a conversation where, by doing this work on ourselves, like I said, it wasn't them who invested tens and thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours into peeling back the layers and having conversations with mentors, doing the yoga, doing the meditation, doing countless of pages of journaling, hours of crying underneath the shower. So it wasn't them, it was me. However, they created the opportunity, they created the space for me to do this work. And then collectively we uplifted each other and we almost, it's like created a whole new playing field, a whole new platform, a whole new playground that is so much more spacious and inviting, and it allows us to really play in a very, very, very different way. And that exactly is also the space that when it comes to our intimate relationships, it works the same way. Oftentimes I would hear myself actually speak to my mentors and it would be my ego that comes up and say, I'm the only one who does this work here. My husband really doesn't. All he cares is about, and it goes like, in the, what's the movie? Cartoon. The Snoopy. What are the kids? I forgot. But it's like, mom, mom, mom. But I would really hear myself literally, mom, complaining. And it's like, that does not resonate with me. It really doesn't. So taking this radical responsibility for my thoughts, for my feelings, for my emotions, for my responses, for my own energy. What happened is that we are energetic beings, and with me shifting my own energy, it created a very different space for my husband to be in. And with me healing all these wounds that were hiding behind this armor of masculine energy that I was thriving in for so long, as I started to soften in so many ways, I was able to pull back and we kind of reestablished the balance. And he was able to step into his own masculine. Probably if he heard me say this, I could hear his eye roll right now. I could guarantee. But in a way, it allowed us to really shift back and find a different kind of balance, start dancing a very different dance. And honestly, who in their right mind, so to speak, would feel comfortable walking on eggshells anyway? And you know what? At one point, he actually said to me, when I said, we were having a conversation, and I said, well, what do you really want? What's going on here? Because I have all these dreams and I have all these desires and I have all these plans and you don't have any. What the heck do you want? And one of the things that he responded with was like, well, maybe I would if I didn't have to walk on eggshells around you. And I could feel my blood boil. And I was like, what are you talking about? I am the most considerate person. Da 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 da. Again, ego going, wah, 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 wah. And continuously doing the work, I was also able to recognize that this was simply a reaction and that there was a lot of fear involved. There was a lot of self-doubt in that. There were a lot of stories that were not even mine. So ultimately, we were able to get to the space where I noticed that he simply expressed how he felt and I reacted to it because I had certain attachments and expectations, as opposed to being really impartial and simply allowing him to express himself without being judged. Once we clarified that, once I was able to realize that, of course, the conversations that we were able to have were able to be deeper. Even uncomfortable conversations. We're able to have a lot of uncomfortable conversations because we learned how to detach the ego. And again, it's still a work in progress. To the point, even looking right now, over the past couple of weeks, I was really vocal to bring us back, from the past experiences into the present time. Over the past weeks, I was really vocal about setting boundaries and releasing relationships, releasing people, releasing expectations, concluding relationships, I should say, with family members and friends who made a choice to, when it became clear that our core values and moral views are on the opposite side of the spectrum. And for some time, I was sucked into the collective of this shadow, this darkness. And it felt uncomfortable. It felt heavy. It felt like this is not me. This is not my energy. This is not what supports me. This is not what serves me. This is not allowing me to serve from the highest levels and really shine the light that I'm called to shine. So again, I had to peel back the layers and I had to do the work of detaching expectations, releasing those expectations and the judgment, and take radical responsibility for my own thoughts, for my own feelings, for my own emotions, for my own actions. And with love and neutrality, release what no longer belonged into my field, into my energetic field, so to speak, and without any judgment, but with love and light. And just coming to this realization, I could feel the heaviness kind of dropping, and I could feel elevating myself again and breathing with greater ease. There was a day or two when I was in transition between those two spaces. And it was such an interesting experience that a simple decision to make those releases created a ripple effect in those who appeared in my life seemingly out of nowhere, and the opportunities that presented themselves seemingly out of nowhere. It was just a beautiful reminder that when we allow ourselves to fully be who we are, fully expressed, when we take a stand for what we believe in our core and honor ourselves, magic and miracles truly do happen, and we are the ones who get to create them. And this is the philosophy that I am doing my very best to pass down to my girls, and also in my relationship with my husband. And our relationship is consistently shifting, it's consistently changing, it's consistently evolving as well. And there are things that I simply, I can share my side of the story. I know he has his own, and then together there's the third layer, the third level, the third aspect, the third, what do you want to say, angle to it. So whatever I'm sharing right now, it simply is solely mine. But I wanted to bring it into the light, and I wanted to speak out about it because I know so many women in particular right now are finding ourselves in this space when we're consistently evolving, where we're consistently shifting and changing and growing, and are doing our own releases in many different ways. And there are days when we are filled with self-doubt, right? Am I doing the right thing? Am I saying the right thing? Am I overreacting? Am I being irrational? Trust me, I have been there. And every single time I find myself in this space, some of the practical tools, first and foremost, meditation and journaling, absolutely. Physical activity. And then also having those around us who are able to not only hold the space for us, but also hold up the mirror without their own attachments, without their own judgment, to really help us peel back the layers and see, are we truly speaking our own truth? Or are we, again, thinking of the boxes of somebody else's expectations? And I know how easy it is to be sucked into the collective and get all worked up, especially on social media, when you're expected to show up in a certain way, when you are under the pressure to speak out in a certain way, to show up in a certain way. And I'm not here right now to really discuss or to take any sides, because ultimately everything has the right to exist. And it is this polarity that allows for this balance to be maintained. Otherwise, we would all be sucked into the, nothingness, so to speak, or we would fall off on one side. Just like when you go on a teeter-totter and everybody gets on one side, there's, but what I do wanted to say is, for this very particular, just for this conversation that you and I are having right now, it is onto you. It is your responsibility. It is your job to get still and go within, because you are the only one who gets to choose and feel into and decide what feels in integrity for you. What are the things that are important to you? What are your priorities? What kind of life do you want to create and live? What kind of relationships do you want to cultivate and nurture and thrive in? And where do you draw the line, and why are you drawing the line there? And I really offer that you give yourself time. There is absolutely no rushing here, but take all the time that you need to make those choices that ultimately feel good, and they feel good for you. Some are going to be difficult choices. Of course, there's going to be heartbreak. There's going to be this feeling of disappointment. There's going to be anger. There's going to be resentment. But yet remember that every single time any one of those arise, just get curious around the attachments and expectations, because everything has a meaning only when we assign it a meaning. Another thing that I would like to leave you with is that ultimately, when we look in the mirror, that's the reflection that matters. The person staring back at us, can you look into this person's eyes? If you can, that is, that's the guiding principle, is like the Northern Star. If you can't, then there's some work to be done. So to bring this conversation to a closure, I know there's a lot of different ways that this could have gone, and there's a lot of layers that we haven't even touched upon. But ultimately, what it really starts with, and like I said, whether it's in parenting, whether it's in intimate relationships, whether it's relationships with your business partners, with your clients, with your vendors, with your employees, with your contractors, with your parents, it all starts within us. And that is the self-mastery, that infinite game of becoming the next best version, the next truest version of who we truly are. And then also understanding that as we're going through this journey, and as we're going through the messes, and we're going through all the heavy lifting, on the other side, as we are shifting our own energetic vibration, there are going to be environments, there are going to be relationships, there's going to be opportunities, jobs, businesses, services, homes, you name it, that we simply outgrow, and we choose to move on, and we choose to release the old to make space for the new. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, because even in marriages, right, 50% of marriages end up in divorce. I would dare to suggest that a couple of years ago we were introduced to a term, conscious uncoupling, and it sounded like, what the heck? Yeah, right. I would dare to say that awakened beings, this is exactly what we're doing. We are consciously uncoupling, we are consciously releasing with love and light and full support. Somebody said to me not that long ago, she said, I feel like I want to move on, but there's still something alive in our relationship. It hasn't died yet. And I was like, well, what if it doesn't have to die? What if it gets to live on, just in a different shape, in a different form? What if you get to alchemize that energy into something greater, something that is much more aligned? It doesn't mean that a certain relationship needs to end because everything has died and all there's left is hatred and resentment and hurt. What if the highest level of love, highest form of love, highest expression of love is being able to release somebody that you feel is being called in different direction than where you are, when you feel that the particular journey has come to an end in this particular form, and then you together you get to choose whether you want to transform it, whether you want to conclude it. What if, so like I said, there's so much more that we could be talking about in this particular topic, but it is one of the vital parts of creating intentional living. Relationships with ourselves and relationships with others are an integral part of any leadership. And when we want to create intentional impact, it's, again, the foundation. And even in business, over the years, I focused really, really, really heavily on business and strategies. But if I'm honest, and if I'm really looking back, I would say that pretty much every conversation with every single client I had touched upon relationships and marriages and parenting in some way, because their business decisions were ultimately made based on what they desired to create for their families, based on the experiences they wanted to provide for their families, based on the legacy they wanted to live. So the family, the marriages, the parenting, that umbrella itself is so far reaching that I know we're going to be having numerous conversations, and we're going to be going into different depths, and we're going to be looking at it from different angles. And today is just the beginning. But like I said, I've been feeling so many shifts happening, and I've been feeling so many disturbances, especially for those alpha females who are playing in the both worlds. It's like, no, I really need to show up and I really need to share this. So if this resonates with you, amazing. If you're being triggered, amazing, congratulations. And no, in all seriousness, if this is something you wanted to explore deeper, if this is something that you feel you need and require more support on, whether it's just starting to explore or continuously to explore or transform whatever it is that you are, and you feel like this is the time and space for us to do this together, let's explore how did it get to look like. Reach out. And even if you feel like currently you just want to focus on business aspect, but you know somewhere behind there in the back burner there is the relationship aspect of it, let's have a conversation, because things very rarely are what they seem they are. So reach out, you know where to find me. Last but not least, this is a big ask here, but if you know of anybody who needs to hear this, please share it with them or send them over here so they can take a look and take a listen. So thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing this time and space, and sending you much love, and I'll talk to you later.